my name's Robin Leafblad, and I'm here with Santa Ana College to bring you yet another installment of Pain and Torture, aka we're going to be talking about foam rolling and Theraguns or massage guns today, and how to use them, why to use them, some of the variations that may apply to you. So we're going to go through a little bit of science in the beginning, so don't do too crazy. There is a quiz, but it's not hard. We'll go through it together. But why would we want to use foam rolling items such as this? I know in previous lectures we've talked about using things like lacrosse balls and the massage balls. So there's definitely variations to this foam roller application, but we're going to dive a little deeper into how it works and why it works. So why would we want to foam roll or trigger point? We have a couple different areas. The three main areas are going to be activation. So we're trying to get ready for a workout. We want to bring blood flow to that area and activate those muscle fibers to fire. The other two areas are going to be either mobility or recovery. So the mobility aspect, we have tightnesses, we have knots in certain areas. We're trying to get those to release. We have adhesions. So we're trying to get that to break down and to release so that we have a greater range of motion. Or recovery, we're trying to move some of those waste products through the body so that we have a faster recovery period for those muscles. So along with that, in those recovery and mobility aspects, we're looking at active release therapy, we're looking at self-myofascial release, and then also percussion therapy with the gun. So how muscle recovery works. Generally, there's a cascade of events that take place for our bodies to recover and repair. We break those muscles down, and they have to regenerate and repair to come back together. So recovery happens in two phases. We have our initial phase, which is regeneration. Generally, the short term, what happens right after we work out, moving that's going to be that recovery, moving those waste products through the body. The second portion is going to be our resolution phase, which is really the chronic or repetitive use of these tools that over a period of time is going to lead into a greater range of motion, less adhesion. And so it doesn't really target the activation aspect, but we're looking at that mobility and the recovery aspect in terms of how we're recovering overall. Both are important for our optimal performance. So what we're looking at is the kinetic chain. There is going to be a little science into this, but it's important to understand neurologically how and why this stuff works so that you can best choose the application or the approach and how you want to use these tools. So don't get too nervous about seeing science and anatomy up here, but hopefully you can bear with me and we'll get through this. So the kinetic chain components, we have soft tissue, and then we have the neurological system, and then we have the articular system. So soft tissues, muscles, tendons, ligaments. Our neural system is going to be our central nervous system and how those nerve pathways connect and activate those muscles. And then obviously our articular system, which is going to be the joints, right? For that range of motion or better mobility, we have to have range of motion around a joint. And that can be due to neurological issues, it could be due to soft tissue issues, or it could be due to bony issues within that joint. So understanding how that kinetic chain works together, generally we're going to have tightness somewhere, which leads to a lack of range of motion. That lack of range of motion then sets a neural feedback pattern to our body that says we only want to work in this range of motion because that's all we have. So even if we get that range of motion back, our body has that pathway of this is what's normal. Once that inefficiency becomes a pattern, then we have poor body mechanics. Poor body mechanics then leads back to those muscles and those tight knots and all that stuff. So it's kind of chicken or the egg, which comes first. Generally, usually, from my experience, most of you start this process with an injury, right? We have an injury, we're halfway recover it, halfway we don't, and so then now we have a limited range of motion, and so then now that limited range of motion has a kinetic chain effect all through the body to now be detrimental in other areas. So we want to break that cycle, and we can. It's just a matter of being intentional about doing it. So reasons for muscular inhibition or lack of range of motion. We have tightness in the muscles, right? I'm just not stretching. I'm lifting, not stretching. Those muscles get short and tight. We could have soft tissue adhesions. This is generally from injuries. So I have scar tissue in an area from a surgery or from a previous injury. Really common is like ankles. If I sprain my ankle, don't really rehab it all the way, didn't have necessarily surgery, but there's a lot of scar tissue in the area. The other common one is under the kneecaps. Several people have chondromalacia or a lot of scar tissue behind that kneecap, which can cause pain. And then the last one is neural hyperactivity or inactivity. So the nerve patterns from the brain are telling the body to continue to fire over and over and over, and that's what creates those knots. Somehow there's like a glitch in the circuit, and so it's like fire, 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 and it's like, ugh, why do I have this knot all the time? Because the body hasn't learned to shut it down. The opposite could be the same, where we're not getting any inhibition from or any integration from that nerve as well, and so it's not kicking the muscle on. So the foam roll is a really good way to initiate that activation to get those neurons to fire in the muscle, to get the muscle to take off. So we want to stretch, we want to massage, and we want to either do active release or self-myofascial release. So all of these techniques, what we're looking to see really is that we're going to have an increased range of motion. We're going to decrease our muscle soreness. Hopefully those two things are going to relieve joint stress overall. So if you have shoulder issues, knee issues, back issues, these are really kind of the main pieces that we're looking at to alleviate that. Neuromuscular hyperactivity, right? That just not right here, that won't go away. And then the suppleness of your muscle tendons, right? So if the muscle's tight, the tendon's tight, if we can release those muscles, then we're gonna have a little bit more play and laxicity in those tendons, which puts a lot less stress on the joints. The patterns between the brain and the muscles, the neuromuscular efficiency is gonna be a whole lot better just because we're cueing those pathways correctly. And then all of that's going to lead to maintaining functional muscular length, right? So we're going to be more functionally able to move as we need to. So here's the science. We have to understand how these work because we're going to be activating two different things for two different reasons. So understanding skeletal muscle and tissue anatomy. In this picture, we have what is called the muscle spindle. So the muscle spindle is actually in the muscle fiber, and the neurological activation causes that muscle fiber to fire. Okay, the Golgi tendon organ is actually located in the muscle tendon junction. So muscle spindles are in here, or up here. The Golgi tendon organ is this like little knob that connects the muscle to the tendon, and it measures rate of speed of contraction from the muscle to the tendon, right? If I did this really hard, really fast, right, we want the tendon to still be able to hang on to the bone. So there's two different reactions that we're going to get based on this physiology. One is going to be beneficial for warm-up. One is going to be beneficial for that recovery and that mobility. So the muscle spindles run parallel in the muscles. They measure the change in the length of the muscle and the rate of that change from the central nervous system. So when the length of the speed of the change is great, the myostatic stretch reflex occurs. So basically what this looks like, the best example I can give, most of us have probably all experienced, is I'm running, I'm on grass, and I hit a sprinkler hole. Boom, right? So what happens? Our physiology is designed to protect us, right? So as that ankle rolls, my muscles all on the outside of my shin are going to contract 1 rep max, boom, as hard as they can to pull my foot back into place so I don't break my ankle, right? The more reactive that neuromuscular reaction is, the less likely I'm going to catastrophically hurt myself. If you ever sprained your ankle and wondered why you're more sore up into your shin than you actually are in your ankle, it's because all of those muscles went like this as hard as they could. So this is the myostatic stretch reflex. We're trying to get that activation in our warm-up, right? We're trying to activate those muscle fibers to fire as we go. So when we foam roll for activation or to engage the myotatic stretch reflex, we're actually rolling back and forth, right? Like rolling out like kind of like rolling out cookie dough, right? If I'm trying to get things to relax and shut down, which we're going to talk about in a second, that's not the adequate way to do it. So rolling back and forth, warming the body up, bringing blood flow, activating those muscle spindles, that is for warm up only, okay? Now we're going to move on to the Golgi tendon organ. So remember, that's between the muscle junction and the tendon, right? So here's our muscle, here's the tendon, and then the GTO. It's kind of like a little knob in there. So it's located in the muscle tendon junction. This also measures the rate of change in contraction and stretch on the tendon. This is going to be the exact opposite reaction though. So as I get a stretch that's too great for my body, it's going to actually shut the muscle down completely. We're turning the muscle off in order to save the body. So the best example that I can give for this one, again, is going to be I'm playing basketball or soccer, right? Something where I'm changing direction and moving, and I go to step, and all of a sudden my leg just gives out. Like, whoa, what was that? I have no idea. Like somebody unplugged and then replugged the muscle. The idea is if I would have continued in that line of action, most likely I would have injured my knee, pulled a muscle, something else catastrophically would happen. So as that warning sign goes off, we've stretched too far, we've stretched too fast, boom, pull the plug, shut it down. We're more likely to save our body by doing that than allowing the body to continue through that path or range of motion. This is the engagement or the activation, or I don't want to use activation, but this is the response that we're looking to get when we're working on mobility and recovery, right? So in that case, we're going to take our foam roller, we're going to roll to the point of pain where we find that tension or trigger point, and then we're going to hold pressure there. That pressure should engage this Golgi tendon organ to shut the muscle down. So that's kind of the difference between the two. The hope is that that happens. The problem is we've had this neurological pathway and that really gnarly knot in your shoulder blade for like 10 years. So one day of foam rolling may not get that thing to go, oh, you know what, I'm sorry, I'm going to shut down. So it may take a little bit of time in order to retrain those neuromuscular pathways to learn to get that body to shut down. So hopefully you guys have really been able to understand the difference between those two and how those activations occur. Now, when we talk about the Theragun or the trigger point gun, we're really going to be leaning into this physiology because there's different variations of vibration that you can utilize with this. So obviously this is no vibration and me doing the work. The difference with the gun is, again, I can utilize leverage or mechanics to help benefit my range of motion. And within that, I have now variable speeds, and those speeds are going to target the neurological pathways differently. So we'll get to that in a little bit when we talk about the Theragun, but hopefully the physiology starts to make sense in the application of how we're going to use some of these tools. So that shutting down of the Golgi tendon organ is what we call autogenic inhibition. So contracting of the agonist or working muscle is inhibited by its own receptors, right? It basically gets shut off by itself. Muscular tension is decreased, reducing pain, most likely avoiding injury and improving function. So how generally self-myofascial release works, we're going to focus more on the mobility and the recovery side, is we're going to hold pressure on that tension point. We're going to try and activate that GTO to get that muscle spindle to relax the muscle that we're working. It doesn't take a lot of pressure, like we don't have to really dig, like just our body weight is going to be enough to get this done. So some tools and equipment. In our previous lectures, we talked about the foam roller, different size balls, right? So for different body parts, right? The peanut for the spine, the massage ball I like to use in the chest and in hamstrings, some areas that are a little bit more pinpoint than the foam roller itself. And we have different size foam rollers, which we'll talk about in a second, as well as the massage gun, several different types of massage guns. We have Theragun, Hypervolt, Hyperice, all kinds of off-brand that are available. That's, I'm going to leave to you to go through your research as to which is going to be the best for you. So talking about some recovery methods, we talked about myofascial release. We can use foam rollers. We can use sticks. So if you're a runner, using the runner stick, tennis and lacrosse ball, and then trigger point gun are all variations that you can use. Stretching and mobility continue for our cool downs, promote well-being, and then always going back to trying to increase or improve our postural habits and avoiding gravity. So some foam rolling guidelines. We're going to go through some foam rolling do's and don'ts, and then we're going to go through some Hypervolt do's and don'ts. So some main things that we want to look at, we're going to be doing keeping your spine in neutral position, maintaining joint alignment. So in this example, you can see shoulders, hips, knees, and ankle are in a straight line. We're not folded up and curled up. Generally is what's going to happen when things are painful. We tend to go into the fetal position. If you can, 1 to 2 times a day would be ideal. And then using this again to warm up or to recover from your workouts. Ideal if you can, get out of your shoes, helps you relax a little bit more, can breathe, you can get into your feet with some of the other smaller items. So a lot of our tension is held in our hands and our feet, and if we can get those to relax, then generally the body will follow. So some rolling techniques. In this example, you can see you want to start generally from the distal end of the muscle and work towards the proximal, or start furthest from the heart and work towards the heart. That helps engage and utilize the lymphatic system in order to force that waste product back into the body to be absorbed and metabolized. When you get to the spot that hurts, generally everybody gets a unibrow and starts squinching their face. I can tell when people hit it. You want to breathe and try and relax as much as possible. Roll each area generally for 1 to 2 minutes, and then those trigger points or those tough spots 30 to 45 seconds. We don't really want to dig and dig and dig and dig, because at some point then we overshoot and then we actually engage the muscle spindle, and then that knot actually will dig in harder. So there's a kind of a fine balance in line in terms of navigating how long to stay in some of those spots. Some breakdown on foam rollers, all different kinds. You can do as we have in our example, our 18-inch, our 3-foot, right? Generally it depends on what you're using it for and or where you're taking it. So if I have one at home, I like to use this if I can. If I'm traveling, I can throw this under my car seat or in my trunk. And then if I'm like traveling far, and obviously this takes up space in my suitcase, that's when I go to that massage ball, right? So I kind of have different options based on where I'm going and what I'm doing and where I'm training. But here you have round, we have half round, right? These for balance, I can really get into the feet but not, take a chance of eating it by getting the foam roller kicked out from under me. So if I need a little bit more balance or stability, I can get these half rounds. I can use these for other like rehabilitative exercises as well. And then density. So not all foam rollers are created equal. We have low, medium, and high density. So this would be more of a medium density. Is gonna hold its shape and hold up pretty much over the use of the foam roller. The only thing I usually see with these is all the little pieces start to pop out and they start to whittle away. The low density, generally, those are the ones you're gonna see at like 24 Hour Fitness or Fitness 19 or LA Fitness, whatever your local gym is. They're the white ones that when you pick them up, they look like bananas because and they're like all whittled to the middle. They're really soft. If you're just getting into foam rolling and you have really tender areas like an IT band, I would recommend starting with that softer foam roller. You're gonna graduate pretty fast through that, so That's why I usually try and encourage people to go right for the medium density if they're gonna purchase their own, just because it's gonna suck at the beginning, but you'll kind of build up that tolerance pretty quick, and now you have a foam roller that's gonna last you quite a while. The third option is gonna be the kind that have the PVC pipe in the middle. This gives us nice rigidity. It's gonna hold up like forever and a day. I can stand on it, right? I can roll my arches, and I'm not gonna have to worry about getting big indentations or anything in this foam roller. So those are kind of the options you have in the styles or types you're gonna use. And we'll move on to styles and types of Theragun, or massage gun. So we have Hypervolt, Theragun, Hyperice. This happens to be Perform Better's R3 gun. So it's recover, regenerate, and rebuild. This one has variable speeds. Most have 3. You're looking at 22,000 RPM, 32,000 RPM, 42,000 RPM generally, and those windows or ranges. And the different speeds are going to be specific to different approaches or applications. This particular one I think has 8 speeds, so it just kind of takes those 3 main areas and then breaks them up into smaller variations. With this, you have different types of heads, so it just depends on what your kit comes with or what you want to buy. Most come with 4 or 5, but you can see all these different variations up here. Most of the general ones you're going to get come in plastic form, so you can see nice and easy. There are some, especially in the flat or the round, that come in steel. So the benefit of that is we can then use temperature. So you can put the steel ones in the freezer, you can put them in hot water to heat them up. So now we're increasing our application with heat or ice in terms of that as well. So we have our round head, which is pretty much multi-purpose. You can get into anything, anywhere. For the most part, it's going to be your larger muscle groups. And when you apply this, you're going to want to start the gun at the lowest point possible. And we'll get into this in a second. Keep it off and then apply it to the body. The flat is beneficial for the same reasons in hitting some of those larger muscle points. But the benefit with this is you can actually glide it more on your skin, as opposed to the round one will tend to grab more. So if it's more of I need a wave-like approach to getting into that muscle, the flat kind of is a combination of the round and the blade, right? So if any of you guys have ever had any blade or Graston is kind of the technical term. If you've had anybody with cold blades raking your skin, a lot of that is breaking down the fascia or connective tissue that's binding those muscles down. So this is a really good way, a lot of times on the back through the erectors, into the IT band and into the quads, we can really get more of a flat surface and really get into the body. Gonna be a little bit more painful, so you're probably not gonna start with this one. The next 2 are gonna be more specific body parts or areas. These are gonna be the bullet. So again, a little bit more focal, smaller body parts. So if I have tennis elbow, right, the bigger one may not really target where I need to get. If I have a very pinpoint area I need to target, this is gonna be your go-to. This is also gonna be your go-to for that medium frequency, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. So high and low frequency, you're generally gonna use your larger. Your medium frequency is gonna be your more penetrating, like your bullet. This one is the fork, or some people like to call it the goalpost, whatever you wanna call it. Is really good to get on either side of a certain tissue area. So a lot of people will use this on the traps. A lot of people will use this on the back muscles so that we're splitting and not going directly on the spine. And then a really good body part area is going to be on the Achilles. So for those of you who have Achilles heel, you've got any issues into the bone spurs in the heel, really gonna be able to get into that lower calf area. Some of the techniques and topics we're gonna talk about in a second, but hopefully that kind of gives you an idea of some of those different applications and heads to use. So target areas for the foam roller, we're gonna look at T-spine and chest, we're gonna look at lower back, and then we're gonna look at upper back and T-spine as well. So for the back, I generally like to use our longer foam roller. And we're gonna start, it's a good way to kind of get your mind right for your workout. I'm gonna move my battery pack over here. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna lay on my foam roller, make sure I'm stabilizing. It's really easy to get kicked off right to left. So I wanna make sure that I'm using my hands to lower myself onto my foam roller. And because I have the long one, I want to support my head and my neck. So this is just a nice one just to relax. I can increase the chest with this one. So I'm gonna go hands to heart center, take a deep breath, and let those hands drop to the floor. And I can hold this for 1-2 minutes, right? I can give myself a nice big hug. Now this is gonna get my shoulder blades out of the space, and I can roll from the center out to the side of my body. I've got to use my legs kind of as outriggers, otherwise I'm gonna get kicked off the side of this thing. So when we're rolling on the back, we wanna avoid the spine. So I'm gonna nice and easily come back to my midline. Take a second, take a deep breath, give myself a hug, and then work out to the outside. So I like to use the large foam roller as kind of like a body scanner, right? I'm gonna kind of go, 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 and then I'm like, ooh, I feel that knot right here. So at that point, I may then approach that spot with the foam roller. I may get a lacrosse ball to target that spot that's a little bit smaller, or I may use the Theragun to really get into that spot. So the first pass is kind of like, what's pissed off, what's mad? Okay, there it is. And then I may use a different approach once I figure out where those knots are. So now that we're done with the T-spine, that's gonna help open up the back. I can roll off to the side. And now I'm going to do the lower back. So I'm gonna take that foam roller, I'm gonna make it nice and close to the top of my pelvis. Knees are gonna be bent, and I'm really just trying to open up the back through here. Okay, so depending on if you have any issues disc-wise, we wanna make sure that you tread lightly if you know you already have issues. But if you don't, then we just want to work in a range of motion that's comfortable. Nothing should be over really a 5 in a pain scale of 1 to 10. So if you're like at a 9, then we need to reassess your approach, or maybe that's not something that we want to do. So in this, I'm trying to increase my extension. I'm pointing my chin towards the ceiling behind, or towards the wall behind me, opening up those neck muscles, and focusing on holding for breaths instead of seconds. Once I get out to whatever end range of motion I'm going, I'm gonna reverse. So I'm gonna tuck my chin, then bring my body up. You know, again, if we're in areas that are easily triggered or highly sensitive, we wanna move in very intentional patterns so that we don't end up injuring ourselves. We're gonna move to the middle of the back. So now we're right at the bottom of the rib cage. This is more of the thoracic mobility. So this is where we have the most range of motion. So you should be able to get a little bit more extension through this one. I can add in again a chest stretch, tuck my chin back to start. Hands are gonna go to heart center, and then I'm gonna drop my thumbs in a Y-shaped pattern towards the floor. And if you notice, my rib cage is gonna flare. So my goal is to try and keep that rib cage down while extending the arms. Okay, I'm engaging those abdominal muscles, keep that rib cage down. Extend. I can straighten my legs to increase the stretch. And I'm pulling that rib cage down. Now I'm gonna reverse, knees are gonna go up, Chin is gonna tuck, hands are gonna come in, and then I'm gonna come up. The last one for this series is gonna be right underneath the shoulder blades, right? So again, this is gonna be, the upper thoracic is tends to be very stiff, especially for those of us who spend a lot of time at the computer. So the more that we're in that hunched position, the more we're on our devices, the less mobility we get through that upper body. So we wanna open up and get through that upper part as well. So right underneath those shoulder blades, same apply, hands to heart center, head's gonna go back, ribs stay down, and thumbs go to the floor. Now if I have a really hard time, I don't really have a great mobility here yet, I can put a barbell or dumbbells back here so I can lift up, use those for leverage, grab them, and then sit my hips down to increase that stretch, okay? So same thing as if I had that weight back there, I would then lift my hips up, release, bring my arms in, tuck my chin, and then come back to center. So those are all some different variations for the chest and the spine. The other one that I like to do for T-spine rotation, so we always want to try and get some rotation through the spine, is going to be, we'll go here. I'm going to actually side lie. So this is we like to use this kind of as a crocodile, so to speak. So I'm going to be here. I'm going to actually have my leg on the foam roller. I'm going to have my hands directly out in front of me. Deep breath in, and I'm going to open. So the less range of motion I have through the torso, the more I'm going to have this knee elevated. If I have great range of motion, I may not need the foam roller. But if I can only get to here, the goal is to get the hand to the floor. So if I really put my hand to the floor, my knee's going to want to come up. So kind of a modified position to start would be having that leg stabilized. That way I can get that rotation. I can also go chest on the floor. And instead of doing my scorpion this way, I can elevate my hand and scorpion. So again, working on that body extension, stacking those joints, ankles, knees, hips, making sure my shoulder's at 90. I don't want my hand down and behind me. I want it up in line with my torso. So these are all going to be some upper body ways that you can use your foam roller. From there, we're going to, the lat, everybody's favorite. Okay, so this along with the IT band, I tend to try and put my target areas. Number one are going to be either A, what I'm using for the day, or B, what's mad from what I used in the day. So depending on if it's warming up or cooling down and recovering, I try and get a flow. So I start on my back, then I go to my sides, then I go to my front. So this would be, we did all the back and the chest. So now I'm going to go to the side. So from here, I'm actually going to put the foam roller perpendicular to my body. And I'm going to start at the rib cage. Body's going to be in a straight line. And I'm going to roll towards my armpit. So you're going to find you may need to teeter back a bit or sit at a 45-degree angle to really get into that lat and that teres minor. You may notice like rotating your palm up versus your palm down may change the area that you target, or even bending the elbow, right? So now this kind of pops my shoulder blade out and I can really get in underneath my shoulder blade with my elbow bent. So you're gonna have to kind of just move around. The thing with the foam rollers and the trigger points and even stretching is there's like the general do this stretch or do this roll. So this would be rolling the lat. But I'm gonna move until I find my knot. And we're all different, our anatomy is different, and how we use our bodies is different. And so it may be a little bit different for me. Mine may be high and up in that armpit, where someone else's might be more down into the bottom of that lat. So individually, you're gonna just have to move around until you find that trigger point. And then once you find it, the goal, try and melt into the foam roller, focus and channel your breathing and try and get that muscle to shut down. Okay? All right, so moving on. We did the scorpion stretch already, so we talked about that. The only thing I would like to add in there in terms of having that arm out to the side is the other variation I would use would be that physio ball, right? That 6-inch ball, you just put it right underneath the chest. That or the Theragun would be ideal for really getting into that pec. So if you did a really heavy bench routine the day before and your chest is really, really sore and tight, you can use that 5-6-inch ball, or you can use the Theragun to really get into that pec, anterior delt, and bicep area. All right, so trigger point, we'll get into this guy. So for general tips, you want to start with the vibration the lowest. I'm going to go ahead and turn this on. This one turns on the bottom, and it automatically kicks on. Every time I've turned it on, it automatically starts as 1. So I usually put it to 0, figure out which tip I want to use, and then, okay, today I'm going to do, let's say I'm going to do my pec. Or I don't know, hopefully it doesn't mess up the microphone, but so I'm going to get into the pec muscle. I'm not going to turn it on in contact with my body because I may hit the button 3 times on accident and be on level 3 without me really wanting to be there. So I'm going to start it. So I hit the negative and that goes to 9, 0, and 1. See, I hit the wrong one and I would have been like full tilt and I wouldn't have been ready. So start it off the body, and then you're going to gently apply the pressure to the body, right? So I don't want to have to add pressure. If I need to feel like I need to get deeper into the muscle, then I would just increase the vibration, okay? So pretty self-explanatory on how to start and stop the thing. You just want to let the gun rest or float. If it's too light, you'll kind of see that hammering. It has to have the appropriate pressure to where it'll stay in contact with the body. And generally you want to move about 1 inch per second. So you don't want to go super fast. You don't want to hold pressure in one spot for too long. It's just kind of a nice, easy glide. That's why the flat head is really good for that one. If you're really getting into more of that glide versus trying to get into a deeper body part, a larger soft tissue area. With that being said, again, going back to like the 3 main vibration areas, your lowest vibration is going to be something that is more for warm up, right? I'm just trying to, it's more surface. I'm not really penetrating deep into the muscle. So I'm really just trying to get blood flow to the area. Very similar to like that, that activation stick that runners tend to use. So with this one has 9 settings. So if you divide that by 3, there's basically 3 settings per kind of category with this particular one. I think the Hypervolt and Hyperice and Theragun all just have 3. So basically this one took those 3 and then divvied it up even more. So I'd be in 1, 2, or 3 for more of my warm up, really kind of just getting the body parts going. Really great if you tend to work out early in the morning, like 4, 5, 6 o'clock, and it's still like 40 degrees outside, right? And haven't wrapped your head around moving a whole lot, right? We can use this to get some blood flow to the area and get you warmed up. If I wanted to get more pinpoint, right? I have a very specific area that needs some work. Generally is going to be like in the shoulder, that muscle knot behind the shoulder blade, tennis elbow or golfer's elbow, and then the piriformis, that one deep spot in that glute, high glute that tends to have a lot of problems or give people a lot of problems with sciatic. That's when we would want to go to, let me turn this off. That's when we would want to go to our bullet. So this would be our application, and it just, all variations are different, but this one is just kind of, it pulls in and pulls out. So you should be good to go. Then I'm going to turn it on. Again, kicks over at 1 automatically. So I'm gonna go to 0, get myself ready and set up. If I would have like kicked that on and I was in my piriformis, I wouldn't have been too happy. So now I can kind of get into that glute. And now it's very focal to the location I want as opposed to general. The middle range of frequency is best used for this pinpoint because it's going to penetrate deeper into the musculature. So that would be, for this particular one, it would be 4, 5, and 6 range. For your variations that only have 3 levels, that would be your level 2. So again, going to be more deeper, more penetrating, and then with the application of the correct head, you're going to target really where you need to be. All right. And then for that third variation, we wanted to get more surface. The third variation is going to be really more about overriding pain sensory. So if I'm really sore from a workout, let's say my quads are super, super sore, I'm probably going to use, well, this is the flat head. So in the use of this, we're going to be gliding across the body or scraping the body. That ideally, I believe, would be more for 1 or 3 as well. So I'm going to go across the body as opposed to digging or hammering into the muscular tissue. So that's how that one works. So if I was going to do a recovery, or I'm trying to get ready for a workout and I'm really, really, really sore, I'm actually going to go to my highest level. So 3 is the vibrations for 3 is at the highest rate possible. And what that does is it overrides the neurological message or pathways of being sore. So there's a difference between being sore and being injured. If I'm just really sore because I did a bunch of lunges and I have to then go do kettlebell swings and some other stuff the next day that's programmed in my workout, then I would use probably either the flat or the round and use that third setting in order to override those pain messages, warm the body up. Again, it's going to be more surface because it's so fast. So 1 and 3 don't penetrate as deep. 2 is the deep penetrating, that which you'd want to use the specialty heads to use. So in that being said, those are our main kind of points. Areas you want to avoid bone, right? We don't want to vibrate on bone, especially through the spine. Nerves, so if you're in some of these areas that are small and pinpoint, it can be very easy to get into like that ulnar nerve. So make sure that we're paying attention, right? We don't want to hit that funny bone. Wouldn't feel good at high vibration. So pay attention to where you're going and try and stay on that soft tissue. Tendons and ligaments generally are a no-go. The only difference, there's certain or specific areas that I would recommend would be like the Achilles, right? If you have tight calves and you have Achilles issues, I wouldn't necessarily dig down into the heel and the lowest part, but this should help get into the upper calf and upper tendon area to alleviate some of that pressure. So there are a few caveats to these general rules, but overall, we want to try and stay on soft tissue. All right. So for the upper body, you can get into the traps, we can get into the biceps, we can get into the shoulder and the chest, forearms, right? So the benefit with this as well is we can get to some areas that the foam roller just won't target for us. So really getting to those forearms. It's wildland season. Suddenly everybody's working on wildland. We're using hand tools and everybody's hands and forearms are completely thrashed. You can actually vibrate or work on your hands as well. A lot of tension is held up in our hands. And, so if there's something where you guys did a truck operations day and you guys are doing a lot of tools and your hands are sore, you can actually massage gun your hands as well. So lower body for the foam roller, we can, same rules are gonna apply. We're gonna start furthest from the heart, work towards the heart. We can hit the quads, we can hit the adductors, we can hit the hamstrings, and the calves and shins. I highly recommend when you do if you have a lot of hip tightness, think about targeting your hip all the way around. So most people just do the front and the back, but we want to get into the IT band, which we'll talk about in a second, and we want to get into the groin. That's one area that most people avoid at all possible costs. So quads, I'm going to go ahead and give you a quick tutorial. We can see in the picture, we're starting at the knees and going towards the hips. So less pressure is going to be arms extended, more pressure is going to be on the elbows because I'm more vertically straight down on top of the foam roller. And as I go, I'm going to feel those spots and be like, yeah, I did quads yesterday, did squats. And then I'm going to move on and so forth. So again, whether we're warming up or we're mobilizing and active, recovering, you will move accordingly to that philosophy or thought process. Now, getting both quads is going to be real hard to get into those pinpoint areas, so I may move that foam roller all the way to one side, and now I can do one leg at a time, okay? In this regard, I can kind of open the hip and get into the, I'll switch to this side so you can see. I can open the hip to get into the inside of that quad a little bit. I can go straight down on top of the quad. Quad means 4, which means we have 4 muscle groups in that soft tissue area. And I can also not quite get to the IT band, but get out into that vastus lateralis, or the outside of that quad. So self-myofascial release would be getting to that point, holding pressure, trying to relax. Active release would be finding that knot and then moving through my own range of motion. Right? So I'm not moving the foam roller, but I'm moving my own body and trying to get through to get that knot to shut down. So both techniques are appropriate or active. And then again, for the warm-up would be more of the roll back and forth. So anything with the legs and the arms, we can do both. Or if we need more specific trigger or pressure, we can do one leg. With the adductors, so this is one that we definitely don't see very often. You're going to want to bring your knee all the way up to 90, so hip and knee is at 90, and I'm going to rest my lower leg on the foam roller. From here, I'm going to rotate my body so I'm planking. So I'm going to be in that, hips are going to be open, and now I'm going to roll towards my groin. Usually this first third's not bad, and then you get about at halfway and life really is terrible at this point. So you'll be surprised how much tension you have in your groin. And we tend to not be very flexible in that area either. So again, we're trying to increase range of motion, and releasing that inner hip will help with some of our low back pain. So I'm going to hold here. Again, I can flex and extend if I want to move into that active release therapy as opposed to that myofascial release. Okay? So I do both sides. So personally for me, I would do the quads, I would do the groin, I would then go to the IT band, to the side, starting at the knee, going towards the hip. Again, the top third is usually the worst. And then my last one, so I did the front, the inside, the outside, and now I'm going to go to the hamstrings or the glute. So if I'm going to do the glute, right, I've been focusing on my right leg, did the front, did the inside, did the outside. I'm going to do my right glute. I want to take my right foot and place it on my left. Notice that that right knee is pointed towards the ground, and I'm in the 45 of that, kind of that glute or that butt cheek. So here, everybody's trigger points in here are going to be different as well. For me, on my right side, I have to get like all the way over into this spot. For my left side, it's almost straight up and down is where my knot is. I'm not the same on the right and the left. So that's one thing you'll notice too, is your right and your left won't be the same. But here again, you're gonna go find that spot. You'll be surprised at how high up into your pelvis some of those knots are. You may have to get all the way up into here to get into some of those areas. So explore, move around, drop the knee, go a little bit more vertical, and find those spots. You may have more than one. Hamstrings are very similar to the quads. I have a really hard time getting any good traction in the hamstring with both legs on the foam roller, especially because most of my weight ends up being behind the foam roller. So this one, I try and lean over, get as much weight on the foam roller as I can. But for me, the best approach for this one is to stack my feet and do one leg at a time. I personally, to get into the hamstrings, like using my massage ball better, that 5 to 6 inch ball, because it can really get into the grooves of those different muscles. And then moving on to the glutes. Let's see, previous. So calves and peroneals, or calves and shins, same idea. Calves, just like the hamstrings, I'm gonna lift my body up, I'm gonna stack my feet, and I can get into those calves. I can turn that toe out and get the outside calf. I can turn the toe in and get the inside calf. Again, based on how you run and how your foot mechanics are, you're gonna find different areas that are harder for you. Switching foot gear, so going from your regular station boot to 2 weeks in your Wildland boots can drastically put a hurt on your calves. So this is a really good one to get in there with. Again, I personally, for the back side of the body, I personally like that 5 inch ball. The other one would be the shins. So I get a lot of questions with people with shin splints. How do I stretch my shins? Right, doing that seated stretch is a good one. But how do I, if my shins are sore from starting running again, how do I get up into the side of that calf, or the peroneals? So same idea, I'm gonna get into that plank position. I'm gonna roll towards my knees, and I can really get onto the side of the body this way. And then flex and extend my toe for that active release. This would be my warm-up, getting ready to run. This would be after my warm-up, or after my run, trying to get those knots to calm down, holding pressure there. Again, the calves, forearms, might be better served with the Theragun. So just depends on which tools help you target your body parts the best. We talked about the glutes. Again, whichever side you're targeting is gonna be the leg that's elevated and the cheek that you're kind of seated on. And you're gonna roll from the hamstring attachment up towards the top of the spine. IT band, everybody's favorite. So we talked about this slightly too. Good body position. This is the one I tend to see everybody all curled up in fetal position trying to do this way. Make sure you guys get yourself set. Open that body up. Open up that chest. You can use your top leg for leverage in those really tender spots. Right? For me, the top third is the worst. For some people, the bottom third is the worst. So it just depends on your anatomy and how you use it. And just focusing on channeling that breath and relaxing. Okay? All right, so trigger point, similar. We talked about the different areas that you can target. Quads, glutes. Hamstrings are a little bit hard on your own. You may have to have someone assist you. And then the calves are really great for runners. Like I said, the fork head works the best for the Achilles. So prior to exercise for optimal performance, all of these items are great for increasing blood flow to the muscles and reducing tension, increasing our range of motion to get us ready to move through good ranges of motion, and reducing tension, and helps correct imbalances. So when we have imbalances, the more open and supple and warm we are, the better off we're gonna be to be moving through good ranges of motion. Tips and tricks. Start with the foam roller for increasing blood flow. Like we talked about, limit your application to 1 to 2 minutes per body part. We don't want to camp out for 45 minutes just on the IT band. And then immediately following the foam roller with some dynamic mobility, right? So if I was really sore in my hamstrings and my quads from a squat work I did yesterday, I'm gonna roll them out, and then I may get into, you know, some good dynamic air squats or lateral squats, lateral lunges, some knee hugs, some quad pulls, something that's more dynamic and active to get me ready. So that being said, these are some great tools. Hopefully you know a little bit more about how to use them and how to apply them to you. And for any questions, you guys can follow up with myself or Chris Ross at Santa Ana College. And we'd love to come out and help you guys, show you how to use it or answer any questions you might have. So I appreciate your time, and hopefully we'll get those muscles to either activate or shut down based on what we're trying to do. Good luck.